Well, hi everyone. It's Tim Topham here again from Melbourne, where it's just gone 8:30 a.m. and I'm just preparing for starting my new working week with a whole lot of things to talk about that's coming up really soon, and a pretty action-packed week for me, actually, doing a whole lot of different things. But look, I hope you're enjoying your weekend. If you're over in the United States or Europe, it's going to be Sunday evening for you. Welcome if you're over in Australia to Monday morning. Winter's actually started to hit over here. It's just suddenly gone cold this weekend. So goodbye summer. It's into winter time. Now, my title for this Facebook Live was a little bit odd, but it's pretty much the things that I want to actually cover today in this little session, starting with the podcast. So I'm really excited to say that podcast season 2 I've just recorded. So I spent last week putting all those interviews and episodes together. I've been getting some really great feedback about the podcast so far this year. So I'm really pleased to have moved to the seasons format. I think it's going to work really well. And it just gives us a bit more time to actually organise exactly how we're going to run things, who we're going to have on, and to get everything organised for you to make it as good and as valuable as possible. So I wanted to give you a quick rundown of a few of the guests that I interviewed last week for the podcast to give you a bit of a sneak peek. I also want to talk about GarageBand because this week I'm actually finally putting together my full course on GarageBand, which I'll talk about in one sec. And finally, the Toddlers and Tantrums. Well, that's a sneak peek about a Facebook Live coming up on Friday, and also about a webinar that I'm doing next week. So I'll talk to you about that in just one sec. But firstly, to the podcast. I have to say, it was at times exhausting last week doing all these recordings, but so inspirational. And the people that I've been able to get on for the next season, I'm really so excited to share with you. So here's just a little sneak peek. First up, well, these aren't in order, by the way. These are just the interviews that I did. So Philip Keverin is coming on the show, and he talks about his 25 years as a composer and arranger, and gives us a whole lot of background about how he goes about what he does and how on earth he manages to put out so much music. This guy is phenomenal, and his music is great, his arrangements are fantastic, and he seems to be putting out books and books and books all the time. I couldn't believe how much he was doing. So we actually get to the bottom of how he's able to do that. And also he provides some advice for teachers out there who might be interested in being arrangers and composers and actually getting found online, how he recommends doing that. So that's a really interesting discussion. We've got Todd Whaley. He's one of the team from My Music staff coming on to share a whole lot of business strategy and tips for your studio. And this was really interesting because one of the advantages of having someone like Todd on the show is, while he's not a piano teacher, he is helping thousands of piano teachers around the world with their studios. And the other thing is that these guys have a whole heap of data that they can extrapolate across all the teachers, what they're doing, and see trends that we can't actually see necessarily. So we dive into a number of really interesting discussions around business building, the importance of websites and social media, for example, or whether that is important. We unpack just simple things that you can do that actually can have a really big effect. And so that is coming up as well in season 2. We've also got a 3-part series with my now good friend, I'd say, Danny Thompson. Now, many of you will have seen my Facebook Live that I did with Dave Simon and Danny Thompson. Danny Thompson's the guy with the big beard. He's a real rocker of a dude, and he knows business like nobody else. And so we're keeping on the theme that we started with Todd. And Danny's 3-part series, the first part's on branding, and this I really think should be sort of piano teacher 101 at a course, right? Just setting the branding for your studio is so important, and something that so many of us miss. And so we end up with a real mismatch of ideas. Our tagline's different to what our fonts and logos say about us, and maybe that's different to what our vision about what we actually are trying to achieve for us is. So we dive into how to fix that up, and Danny gives a really simple way to solve your branding problems, or for the first time to look into them. So we talk branding, we talk all about practice. So I'm diving into that idea about practice and how practice can be seen as a marketing strategy for your studio. So that's really, really good. We go into more depth than we did on the Facebook Live. And that's always a really interesting topic, always sometimes controversial. And we finish his series with a look at Facebook advertising and whether it's worth doing now, whether you should do it yourself, should you hire it out, what are some of the tips, what are some of the strategies. And we will be having more about Facebook ads with a free webinar with my own Facebook ads manager coming up in July this year. So that will be really, really good too. All right, then we've also got Philip Johnson. Now, Philip Johnson is an author you might have read, but you might not know his name so well. But if you've used Scales Bootcamp, the Dynamic Studio, the Practice Revolution, or any of his other, he's got a lot of books out there, that is all Philip Johnson. He is a superstar. He talks a mile a minute. And we go into a whole lot of piano teaching myth busting, basically. We mention a whole lot of statements that could be thought of perhaps a little bit heretical or unmentionable, and we pull them apart and we talk about the importance of them. So that's Philip Johnson. Excuse me. Hey! Excuse me, cat. Sorry if you can hear my cat in the background. And the most exciting part, of course, is John Schmidt from the Piano Guys. I can't tell you how much fun I had interviewing John. He is on season 2. I'm not going to tell you which episode exactly. You'll have to tune in to find out. And this whole podcast launches on May 4 this year, starting with Fridays. Hey, come here. Shush. You're distracting me. Okay. On to GarageBand. So this week, literally, I'm putting together my GarageBand course for piano teachers. And it's been one that's been on my list for probably about a year at least, if I'm honest with you. People have been asking me for it. I've been putting ideas together in my head. I'm finally actually going to be doing the recording this week. So literally after I finish this, I'm going to have some breakfast. Here's Bronson. We'll keep him happy here. I'm going to have some breakfast and then I'm going to start recording this course. So the kinds of things that you're going to be finding out in this course are about, literally for beginners, an overview of how it all works. So I'm going to be doing this on GarageBand for iPad. This is the app that I recommend you use. I don't recommend it on Mac computers. On the iPad, it's brilliant. How to create new songs, how to choose the instruments, how to use smart instruments, how to use smart loops, how to multi-track record, how to edit, how to quantize, how to create arrangements, how to use the FX. It is unbelievably clever software, and it's free, of course, if you have any Apple device, iPads and iPhones it works on. It is amazing in your studio. And so if you like some of those ideas I have around 4-chord composing, or just getting kids to play chord progressions and things like this, GarageBand is the next step in the process because it can create huge orchestral arrangements for students using their own chord progressions. It's really unbelievable. So that will be released in May. That's the course for May next month. But I'll be creating it this week. So if you have any questions about it, leave a comment under this video. If you have something that you've always wanted to know about GarageBand, let me know under this video. And finally, Toddlers and Tantrums. Why on earth am I talking about that? Well, I'm very excited that next week we're doing our next live webinar, and it's called Toddlers, Technique and Tantrums, How to Thrive Teaching Preschool Students. So this again has been a topic of interest for lots of my followers, my listeners, and members, of course, too, about teaching preschoolers effectively. And so I've teamed up with the fantastic Nicola Canton, who all of you guys love and adore, and we all do because she's such a superstar. So Nicola has been spending the last few weeks rejigging, don't know if that's an Australian term or if that's one that everyone uses, reconfiguring my Notebook Beginners course for preschoolers. So my Notebook Beginners really was for ages 6 to 12 or thereabouts, beginners. So this is a version of Notebook Beginners for ages 5 and under. So lots of group activities, lots of chanting and singing and tapping, and Nicola, being Nicola, has included all these fantastic games that work so well. And we talk about how to actually manage groups of toddlers, how many you should have. Should they be playing the piano or should they be doing things off the piano? All of these kinds of questions are all covered in the webinar that we'll be running. So that's on not this Friday, but the following one. And if you want to sign up early, you can head to timtopham.com/webinar right now. and you'll be able to find out about that. So we're going to be talking about the skills that you need to consider that you might not otherwise be teaching, of course, this age group, how to plan your lessons, whether rote teaching is a good idea for these guys, the role of parents, which is incredibly important too, and the best approach for technique for little fingers too. So that's all coming up in the next webinar. And I'm also going to be going live with Nicola this Friday morning at about this time, perhaps just a fraction earlier. So it'll be Thursday evening in Europe and America. And we're going to be going through 3 essentials for preschool teaching, and it's going to have a little download with it as well. So it's a little sneak peek for the webinar that we'll be running the following week. So I hope that all makes sense. So I'm really looking forward to getting together with Nicola for this. We have had so much fun in the past on things like our 5-day piano pivot. And of course, Nicola is someone that's helping me with my podcast and also very important in my InnerCircle community. So it's great to be working with her. I'm looking forward to going live on Friday morning. That'll be Thursday evening for you guys in the United States and Europe, all about preschoolers. And then stay tuned next month for the GarageBand course when that is released. So I'm going to get started recording that literally right now. If this cat leaves me alone, here he is. So you better say hi, Bronson, because you're kind of famous. There he is. Hey, everyone. He's going to probably go to sleep now. He's had a little bit of breakfast. So everyone, thank you very much for joining me. If you've got any questions about any of the things coming up, then please leave a comment. Great to see there's a few people live now, and hopefully it's some more people who will watch the replay. Until I see you next, which will be Friday morning, have a great week of teaching ahead. I know many schools have gone back here in Australia after a little bit of holiday time, so I hope things are going well for you. And do stay tuned for podcast season 2 starting on the 4th of May. All the best, everyone. Have a great week ahead. Bye-bye.